Hi, my name is Kayla Lewis, and today I'll be talking about the influence of Confucianism. Today we'll be talking about three concepts: the origins of Confucianism, the principles of Confucianism, and the influence of Confucianism politically and socially. This presentation is called The Influence of Confucianism. In this presentation, I will discuss the origin of Confucianism and how it has influenced Chinese society politically and socially. Throughout this presentation, the evolution and growth of Confucianism will be showed through numbers and proved by facts. By the end of this presentation, the influence of Confucianism over time will be shown and bring a greater insight into the principles of the religion. First, let's dive into the origins of Confucianism. In the later half of the Zhou dynasty, around the 5th to 6th century BCE, the humanistic philosophical belief system we now know as Confucianism became relevant in China. Confucianism was built from a religious foundation to stabilize and establish a new social institution in China. A man well respected and credited for the religion is known as Confucius or Master Kong, who was alive from 551 to 479 BCE. Despite unintentionally creating Confucianism, nor being the first person to speak about Confucianism ideals, Confucius viewed himself as a spiritual leader and, most importantly, a dedicated philosopher. As the Zhou dynasty began to lose traditional Chinese knowledge that was essential to China, Confucius expanded and continued to teach the ideals of Confucianism to preserve the culture and history that was close to being forgotten. He built his ideas off previous leaders, such as Cao Gong, with many followers carrying on his work and legacy after his death. Confucius and his work as a philosopher shaped the ideals and values of Confucianism, which China's society implemented later on. And on the right side of the screen, you can see a picture, or kind of like a drawing, of Confucius. Now we'll be talking about some of the 5 principles of Confucianism that I deem the most important. In Confucianism, 5 main principles have structured the religion and belief system. These 5 principles also are known as the 5 constant virtues, which are number 1, Ren, number 2, Yi, number 3, Li, number 4, Zi, and number 5, Zhen. The 5 constant virtues were structured in Chinese society to determine a person's true heart and intentions. Social class, status, and gender didn't matter if you were not someone who practiced the 5 constant virtues, and as long as you kept these virtues close and ingrained to yourself spiritually, it didn't matter. Leaders, rulers, and people with political power should govern themselves according to these virtues and apply them to their everyday lives. So kind of like what I reinstated earlier, social class, status, and gender does not matter with the principles of Confucianism. It's not something that, oh, you have to be rich or you have to be middle class to practice the principles of Confucianism, but rather you have to take them and learn with them and grow with them and apply them to your everyday life and apply them to your heart so you can have good nature. And essentially, that is how you really become a follower of Confucianism. So let's kind of break down the 5 constant virtues of Confucianism and what they really mean. What is Ren? Ren is the first principle of Confucianism and is known as the nucleus of the religion. The definition of Ren can mean a variety of things, such as love or even benevolence. However, in Confucianism, it is defined as someone who becomes a gentleman and wields their influence over others in a positive way. Through Ren, A person represents what a human should be spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. Ren is absent in specific people, certain social classes or genders. So this means that Ren is not for specific people. It's not, once again, for people in certain social classes or even genders. It's for everyone. Everyone is capable of possessing Ren, and by treating others with dignity, you can figure out what Ren means to you. Ren is very beautiful because when you have Ren, you are using your positive influence to give that to others in a positive manner. And so when you have Ren, people will see the kind of person that you are. People will see the kind of influence that you have over them, how you're encouraging them to do good things, and you're encouraging them to go down the right path. And I feel like, once again, throughout this presentation, you will see many key concepts, but also many of these principles once again. And you'll also see just a lot of common themes which you should watch out for, such as social harmony, community, respect, family, and peace. Next is the second principle, which is known as Yi. Yi is the second principle in Confucianism, translated as righteousness. The Yi is often compared to being the path, while Ren is known as the heart. In Confucianism, a righteous person will have Yi because the proper action is coming out of their heart willingly and with benevolence. This statement means that having righteousness is not done for fame, socially or politically, but rather for having kindness and goodness in your heart for others. By having Yi, you do not have to determine or premeditate your actions because with a righteous heart, you already know what is right from wrong. And on the right side of the screen, you can see a Chinese symbol of Yi. And just to go back very quickly, you can see for Ren, the Chinese symbol for Ren. So just to kind of dive into a little bit with Yi, when it comes to Yi, this is also a very important principle of Confucianism. And the reason why I say that is because Yi, you are having the wisdom in your heart. And because you have the wisdom, you are able to, you don't have to determine what is right from wrong because you already know because you have that wisdom given to you. And I think this is so important because when you practice Yi, you are building up your spirit to have a righteous heart. And this is very important in Confucianism because you don't want to be a person who has to, constantly go back and forth between what is good and evil when you already know what is good. So Yi is once again the second principle in Confucianism. The third principle in Confucianism is Li. Li is the third principle in Confucianism and is known as a ritual or proper conduct. In Confucianism, benevolence and virtual rules are essential in Chinese society, as following the rules equals purity. Many people throughout Chinese society do not conduct themselves according to Li. Still, if many people viewed themselves as worthy individuals who did follow the rules, the individual will receive good fortunes. Li is a good principle to follow because it helps introduce discipline, respect, and proper social conduct within society and individuals. By conducting yourself respectfully, you are respectful to others and they will also treat you respectfully. So once again, Li, with this being the third principle, is heavily important in Confucianism because, as stated, it allows you to practice discipline and respect. And Li is also really applicable to your daily life, whether you follow Confucianism or whether you don't, because you need discipline in your life, honestly, and you have to follow the proper rules and proper conduct. So it's very respectful to do so. And in Confucianism, when you follow the proper conduct and you follow the rules, you will also see people do the same thing. And you will also see people treat you with respect and with dignity. And you will also treat people with respect and dignity. So it is very important to practice Li because you're able to discipline yourself from the evil actions of the world. And I wanted to say on the right here, we have once again, a Chinese symbol of the Li. Now, the fourth principle of Confucianism is the Z. The Z is the fourth principle of Confucianism, meaning wisdom. When you have Z in Confucianism, you should use your wisdom and knowledge to do good in the world. This statement means that if you know something is wrong and continue doing it, you must use your wisdom correctly. From there on, you can make proper judgments and have the capacity to dictate what is good or evil. By having Z, you can also make appropriate ethical choices in your daily life to prevent you from harming yourself and others. And on the right side over here, this is a Chinese symbol for Z. So when it comes to Z, I think what it is important to recognize is that Z talks about how you are granted with wisdom. I mean, Z literally means wisdom. And so when you are granted with wisdom and knowledge, you should use it to do good in the world. And so when you have this wisdom and knowledge, you don't just have it just to have it, but you have it so you can make proper decisions in your daily life. And you're able to dictate what is good from evil and what is right from wrong. And that is essentially the purpose of having Z, is that you use your wisdom and the knowledge that was given to you and that you have learned to make proper decisions. Because if you don't, then it's practically useless if you're not using it for anything. And so this is just once again the fourth principle of Confucianism, which is very, very important. And lastly, we have the last principle of Confucianism, which is Zen. Zen is the fifth and last principle of Confucianism, translated as faithfulness. In Confucianism, Zen is the most fundamental aspect of the five constant virtues. To have Zen means to be faithful, reliable, and honest. This statement implies that you are to stick to your words and abide by them by never deceiving others. Confucius defined Zen this way so that people could be courteous and keep their words accurate to their hearts. Zen is something that all of us can possess, but we must remain faithful to ourselves before we can remain truthful to others. And on the side of the right here on the presentation, we have a Chinese symbol for Zen. But real quickly, I just want to go back and reread the last line to emphasize how important it is. Zen is something that all of us can possess, but we must remain faithful to ourselves before we can remain truthful to others. Once again, Zen literally means faithfulness. And so, if you are not faithful to yourself when it comes to Confucianism, you're not going to be able to be trustworthy to others. So when you practice Zen, practice being reliable, practice being honest, practice being faithful. By doing these things, you are not only going to be trustworthy for yourself, but for other people as well. And people will recognize that you are a trustworthy person, that you are reliable, and that you are someone that sticks to their words and someone that you're the kind of person people can count on. And so to wrap up kind of all the principles of Confucianism, all of them go together. They're pretty much like dominoes, right? If you don't understand one, you won't be able to understand the other ones. But when you do understand one, you're able to knock down the rest of the dominoes to fully understand the concept of Confucianism and these key virtues in Confucianism that basically make up the religion and the belief as a whole. So now let's kind of dive into the origins of Confucianism and its impact on the world. The rise of Confucianism. Now, Confucianism has existed since the 5th to 6th BCE era, as stated earlier. However, Confucianism did not begin to become popular immediately after Confucius founded it. It was not until a popular dynasty that we now know as the Han Dynasty that Confucianism became popular. The Han Dynasty was a dynasty split into two time periods. The first period, known as the Western Han, occurred during 206 BC, and the Eastern Han occurred during 25 AD. Before the Han Dynasty, the Qin Dynasty had adopted legalism as a prominent dynasty religion. Other religions were not considered and ultimately dismissed, as legalism was heavily favored. Although this is true, once Emperor Gaozu of Han seized power, Confucianism became a religion that continued appearing in the dynasty. Confucius's ideals and work began to spread throughout the Han dynasty, with emperors even viewing Confucius as godlike. Emperor Gaozu did not want to enforce and embrace Confucianism immediately, but only when Emperor Wu, who was after Emperor Gaozu, recognized Confucianism as a state ideology. Emperor Wu believed Confucianism promoted peace, loyalty, and compassion for others. And on the right side of the screen here, we have a picture of Emperor Wu. And he was the one that officially recognized Confucianism as a state ideology, compared to Emperor Gaozu, who was kind of tiptoeing on the lines of wanting to embrace Confucianism, but not wanting to embrace it immediately. And so I think it's also very interesting that, the Qin dynasty had adopted legalism, and legalism became very popular amongst this dynasty. And once again, many of Confucius's ideals were being lost in translation. They were not being accurately passed on until the Han dynasty, where it fully rose again. And so this just shows you that Confucius's ideals are really adaptable, but also they grow as the time changes. Let's talk a little bit about Confucianism's social reign. As Confucianism grew in China, a social order grew with it. Emperors based the social order on 5 relationships: subject to ruler, son to father, younger brother to older brother, wife to husband, and younger person to older person. Confucius described this social order as one that was not based on dictatorship, but rather on relationships based on the concept of filial piety, which was rooted in harmony, love, and care. In addition, this social order translated into job professions, such as artisans and merchants at the bottom, farmers in the middle, and scholars at the top. In this social order, Confucius also believed that people would respect and care for one another, whether they were family or acquaintances. You see, when we talk about a social hierarchy or a social order, in most cases, your first thought is going to be something really negative, that these social hierarchies and social orders are used to put people down. And we can kind of think of a social hierarchy kind of like the caste system in India, where the caste system affects the lives of citizens in that this is a caste system that they cannot be removed from, but they also cannot move up from. However, in the West, we have our own little social hierarchy, where at the bottom are the lower class, at the middle are the middle class, and at the top you have the higher class, also known as the rich. And in typical cases like these, the lower class and the middle class suffer in their social hierarchy, however, they are able to move up and down from it. However, when we're talking about Confucianism, this social hierarchy is not meant to be used as a way to wield power over people or used as a dictatorship, but rather as a form of respect. The social hierarchy is a way to show that you respect your elders, you respect your grandparents, you respect your parents, you respect your ancestors, you respect the people that have come before you. And so when you respect them, you treat them with respect, you treat them with care, you treat them with compassion, and you all typically care about one another. And I think this is very important. I really wanted to highlight the difference kind of between the social hierarchy in Confucianism compared to the social hierarchy in other places such as India or even the United States. And so, just also to kind of dive in a little bit more, let's talk a little bit about the concept of filial piety. So, filial piety is basically where in China you are obligated to take care of your parents or your grandparents or even your ancestors. And this is seen as a major thing that you have to do. So major to the point where if you're not taking care of your parents or your grandparents, honestly, you could go to jail and face jail time or even face a fine. And so filial piety is heavily stressed in Chinese culture because it's all about respect and it's all about family and it's very much rooted in tradition. And so you will see in Confucianism that there's a lot of emphasis placed on treating your grandparents with respect, treating your mom with respect, making sure that they're taken care of, that they've eaten well, that they're drinking well, that they're okay physically, mentally, and emotionally. And this just shows you how something as beautiful as family love can translate into a social love in society. And so I really just wanted to highlight the differences between the social hierarchy and how important the social reign was in Confucianism. So, the effects of Confucianism politically and socially. Traditional Chinese morals and values tend to be more democratic and populist. However, since Confucius' passing, China has heavily stressed the importance of social harmony and community. This statement means that the political and social culture in China has a significant effect on its citizens. Politically, Chinese politicians have aligned with Confucian values as the foundation of their government, but have also adapted to modern society by including things such as AI and high tech systems to gain control socially. Also known as the social credit system, China uses this system to gain real time knowledge of citizens and organizations in China and to determine the credibility of their behaviors. Socially, China has strived to bring uniformity to the country by accepting everyone for who they are, regardless of status, race, and gender. All citizens are to come together under one goal, which is to serve the Chinese Communist Party and give their service to the government and society. By confining to these Confucian values, the Chinese government can spread its influence socially and politically. So, kind of very similar to the previous slide, we talked about how Confucianism had its social reign, how it spread socially. But here we talk about its effects politically. Confucianism has spread politically to the point where when you are a Chinese politician, you are not getting your spot because you are friends with the um, sole president. You're not friends with the cabinet members. You're not friends with um, the department of the head executive of a chair. You're not getting in because of who you're friends with and who you're related to, but rather who you are as a person and simply what you're able to bring to the table. And so in this case, Chinese politicians have taken the traditional values of Chinese society that were once ancestral and have applied it to now, to the point where they're even using things such as AI and high tech systems to gain control socially, but also politically. But what I think is very interesting to know, and if there's anything to know about Confucianism, is that China and Chinese culture have worked tremendously to bring uniformity and also just bring everyone together because it is not about once again status or class or gender, um but it is just about applying these Confucianism values to your daily life and using them to grow and using them to even influence other people. And so I think that it's very beautiful or honestly inspiring that by practicing Confucianism, that your own behavior can become balanced. Your life can become balanced by practicing these values. And Confucianism really just remains a strong and vital belief system for Chinese culture and society. So let's go with the conclusion. In conclusion, Confucianism took the world by storm over 2,000 years ago by influencing a generation of followers that grew Confucius's ideas and helped spread them to civilizations. Confucianism remains a relevant belief system in China, rooted in tradition, harmony, and overall collectiveness. It has profoundly impacted China politically and socially, bringing forth long-lasting life changes and a system for politicians based on fairness rather than unfairness. China has continued to promote social harmony, unification, bonding, family, and respect for one another. Confucius's ideals have lived on for thousands of years and throughout generations to promote one common goal: peace. Although the times have changed and new religions are gaining more attention, Confucianism will always be valued and remembered as one of the most philosophical religions in the world. Confucianism and Confucius's work will continue to live on forever. In conclusion of this presentation, I wanted to say that Confucianism has many, many concepts, but it also has many principles. But what I want to say is that the key concepts that should be taken away from this presentation is that Confucianism, although it does not have a specific god or a specific deity, Confucianism is a religion, or what you can even call a belief system, that promotes harmony, that promotes uniformity, that promotes community, respect, family, love, and care. And by having these things in your life changes you and it influences you and it helps you grow as a person. Confucianism, it has existed over, I believe, approximately 2,100 years. It's been here for this long. But Confucianism still is being used by Chinese society and Chinese culture, and it is continuing to grow, and it is continuing to foster among generations and generations and generations, especially when it can be so hard to translate that information over time. But as time goes on, Confucianism is also going along with time and growing as well. And so this presentation, I just really wanted to emphasize these key concepts, emphasize some of these notable um, influences of Confucianism on society and how it has changed the landscape politically, but most importantly, how it has changed people in both ways, and how Confucianism is still relevant and is completely applicable to the modern day world, and that it's not outdated, that it's not done for, but rather that Chinese politicians and your average citizens are using Confucianism and Confucius's steps to continue to promote this religion and continue to grow it and continue to foster and care for it more than anything, which is absolutely beautiful. And one last thing I wanted to say is that Confucianism, if there's anything you really take away from this presentation, would be that Confucianism focuses a lot on family. Family is a very big thing in Confucianism. It is valued pretty much at the top with many of the key principles that I talked about earlier. And so if you take anything away from this, is that Confucianism is about community as well. This is a religion that is based on community. This is based on faith, having faith in yourself and others, so you guys can mature together. And so you can become at peace. And so you can create social harmony with yourselves and the people around you and nature. And and I mean, this religion is just so important. And yeah, this wraps up my presentation for the influence of Confucianism. Here are my citation slides, and I wanted to say thank you for allowing me to be here, and have a great day. Bye.